one. So now moving over to video number 2. So the article also talks about adaptive skills as well, and this adaptive skills are actually more highly correlated with cognitive functioning than with autism symptom severity, and they tend to be a lot lower than might be predicted by IQ in autism. So adaptive skills would be things like, I think basically daily living skills, and there tends to be like peaks and troughs, that's the word, and spiky profile in autism. So like you might be really good in some adaptive skills and then really poor in others. Obviously I'm really good at cooking, but that's because cooking is my special interest, and I think if we're really interested in something we will excel. It just so happens for me, it happens to be a functional skill. But what people don't understand is that while I'm really good at cooking, because it happens to be my special interest, I am really poor in other areas of adaptive functioning, which is why my ongoing battle with social services at the moment, to try and get them to let me use my direct payments on a cleaner, which everyone says I should be eligible for because I've been assessed as having substantial needs. But yeah, they've got that. I had a really shitty social worker. Even my support worker from Autism Sus is my ex-support worker. She's not currently my support worker. She's in management, but she's been really helpful. She said that that he basically talked over me and everything, and that and by the way, I am complaining about this. By the way, I'm getting advice from it's like an advocacy service, and who are going to be helping me to complain because it was really out of order. But anyway, that's another topic. But adaptive skills, like as I said, I've got a really, really high verbal IQ, but my non-verbal IQ, which is essentially also known as performance IQ, is really low, which is basically a non-verbal learning disability profile where you've got an extremely high verbal IQ. You're both extremely intelligent and extremely, what's the word? I can't think of a PC term to use. Not stupid, but... That's not PC. What is an appropriate term to use? Cognitively disabled, I guess. Cognitively disabled or cognitively handicapped in the non-verbal area while being extremely intelligent in the verbal area, basically. That's basically what it is. And that obviously means that, in the adaptive domain, you're going to not be so great, and I do need a lot of help with adulting, and that is obviously, so, and then it talks about, that's adaptive skills, again it talks about support needs in everyday life. So, in addition to objectively measured adaptive skills and support needs, well-being is equally important. Well-being is equally important. So it says we need to measure self-esteem and life satisfaction as well. So that's taking into account not just the objective functioning, but how the person feels about themselves, and how that has an effect on their self-esteem and their sense of self and their overall well-being. That is really important. Social services don't give a crap about that, by the way. Like the social worker I spoke to, it was like almost out of the dark ages. Like, just did not seem to understand the effect of it on my mental health and everything else. It's absolutely awful, but that's part of the reason why I'm complaining. But yeah, they don't take into account, or they should take into account, the subjective side as well. Okay, so again the article talks about, like, profound autism. So it talks a bit about profound autism, which I touched on earlier. So I won't talk about that now in too much because I've already talked about that. The article argues that we need to integrate both the core autism criteria and co-occurring conditions to represent real-life challenges. They should not be separated, in other words. And then it talks about environment and how environment influences severity, and it talks about changes in severity over time. So it says some aspects of autism are impairing to different degrees during various stages, depending on the challenges, demands, and support. And that's what I was saying about earlier, about how, that's definitely the case for me. As a child, social impairment more obvious. Only because, I mean, it's still there. My social impairment, by the way, in some ways, I actually feel my social impairment is just as bad as what it was as a child. The only difference is that as an adult, I've become better at, like, superficially masking it. That's probably the only difference. But anxiety has got a hell of a lot worse as I've got older, and that has definitely, I feel, heightened certain aspects of my autism, such as the sensory, which has always been there, but it's the anxiety, I feel, has just heightened it, and the rigid and repetitive behaviours have possibly got a bit more extreme as I've got older. I mean, they were actually really, in terms of like intense interest, the height of that was during my teenage years and the Kate Winslet obsession. I sort of feel that, like, maybe when I was younger, because my parents were like taking control of everything and like managing my life and like my routines were all taken care of. My parents always had quite a strict routine anyway. Things seemed to be done at particular times. I sort of feel I didn't then need to worry about routine as much because it was all taken care of by other people. And I feel as an adult I've got this more existential feeling of like unease because I'm having to do everything. It's like a sense of overall responsibility, and I feel maybe that's contributed to becoming more rigid because no one else is kind of providing the boundaries. So, yeah, so I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, it talks about increased social complexities along with decreased resources and support can result in the autism appearing to get more severe in certain areas. And young adulthood is, in particular, in young adulthood, potentially resulting in the same level of autistic symptoms having more impairing outcomes. So in other words, it's not so much that the autism itself has got more severe, it's that the environment has changed. So all of the support a person was previously getting, say, from their parents or whatever, is now no longer there. And that can then expose the sort of it then exposes where the person really, really struggles. It's just that previously those struggles were contained by others. Yeah, that's definitely correct. I really relate to that. Yes, definitely. So it talks about how the common definition of autism severity is based solely on severity levels of the two symptom domains, controlling for age and language, but the challenges in real life go far beyond the core symptoms. Common co-occurring conditions can be as impairing to functioning as the core symptoms, and the core symptoms and co-occurring conditions can interact across development, each influencing each other's trajectory over time. We need to take a multi-dimensional approach. Characterising autistics for research and clinical purposes should include not only severity level but take into account other impactful dimensions that are part of the condition, and they could then use that to create meaningful subgroups. Yeah, I completely agree. Just as like those with very severe intellectual disabilities, that should not be separated from the autism because it all interacts with the autism, in that case to create profound autism. They should also not separate out people who have like OCD and separate that from the autism and artificially call it a co-morbid, when actually that is kind of meaningless because in the real world these conditions interact. And I do feel like there are meaningful subgroups to come out of it, and I feel that like definitely having more than one condition on top of autism kind of automatically makes the whole condition more severe. Like it just does. And like in the brain, it's not like I said before. In the brain, there is no division between the different symptoms. It's all one. It's just psychiatry has to separate them for diagnostic purposes, which is important. But like it's important to remember that in the actual brain, in neurology, it all interlinks. And also, by the way, autism itself is not one condition. Autism is a bundle of comorbids coming together. I think it was Happe who said that, like, talked about the fractionated triad, where social interaction and communication dimension is fractionable from the repetitive behaviour interests dimension. So they actually have different genes contributing to them, and they can occur independently, but in autism they all come together. So that shows that autism itself is a condition made up of co-occurring comorbid conditions in and of itself that we just call autism, for want of a better word. And that is like the core, but then there are all these other symptoms that can also come into the picture, and we separate them and say, oh no, that's not autism, but actually in the brain it's all one. And in actual fact, most autistics do not just have one condition anyway. That is like extremely unusual. Anyway, thank you for watching.